From the newsroom of the Bryant College Station Eagle, this is the Brazos Sports Prepscast. And now, the Eagle High School sports team, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss. What's going on, everyone? I am not Alex Miller or Jake Weiss. I am Travis Brown here in our snazzy new Eagle video studio. We're going to start this segment off. It's about midway through the season with some grades from these two guys, our high school team, of course, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss. Guys, how you doing today?
Yeah, we're like basically the halfway point of the entire Texas high school football season. You got to remember, there's 17 weeks. We're in week 8 now. So 17 total weeks between the start of the season and the state championship games that third week in December. So, hey, we're just going to give some midseason accolades and, praise some teams and guys for having some good seasons.
Well, it's kind of like in a high school yearbook. The what's the word I'm looking for?
Superlatives.
High school superlative.
Midseason superlative.
Jake, you've gotten to know Alex. What would Alex's high school superlative be?
Best dressed.
Best dressed. What would Jake's be?
He's always snazzy. I like.
Jake's would probably be. Get back to me on that one.
Glasses game is pretty good.
The glasses game is strong. I gotta say, I've always liked Jake's glasses, partially because they're very similar to mine. So Jake could also probably win best dressed for, he's always got the nice polos. He's always looking sharp. He's never had a bad dress day.
Most likely of the Eagle people, most likely to hit his head on a door frame.
Robert Cessna, probably.
Yeah. Well, Jake could be in that running too.
Yeah, that's true.
As well. So let's get into what we're really here for, and that's the midseason superlatives for these high school teams. Best team so far, Alex?
Yeah, it's for me. It's got to be Franklin. Okay, they're number one in the state in 3A Division I. They're the defending state champions. We talked in the preseason about how they're going to move up. They moved up to the Division I this year. They're 6-0. They've got some good wins on their resume. They've been tested a few times, which is a good thing. I bet if we called Coach Fannin right now, he'd say, yeah, I'm glad we've been tested, because last year they just steamrolled right through everybody. And so, it's been a little bit of a rebuilding process because of what some of those key pieces they lost from that title team last year. But, the cupboard was not bare, right? They had a number of guys that came back that – they have not skipped a beat, and that's why they are the best team so far. They are the team to beat right now in 3A Division I in the entire state.
Jake, what do you got?
I've got Burton, actually. Burton's another undefeated team. They're 6-0. They're 3-0 in district. And what's really impressed me all year about them is, they're doing this without a home field. They're working on a new stadium right now, so they don't have a home field. So every game's either got to be, on the road or at a neutral site. That's just been really impressive to me, just to see that. They've got some good wins. They're 3-0 in district. I've just been really impressed with them. Only got to talk to their coach a little bit, Coach Jason Hody. Only a little bit, but just really impressed with what they're doing so far.
They're number 2 right now in 2A Division II, and that's only because they're in the same division as Mart, which is number 1. Pedigree is there. Those teams are probably on a collision course potentially to play in a state semifinal or a state champ. It would be the state championship game, I think, because Mart's Region 2 and Burton's either Region 3 or Region 4. So, yeah. We could have a Central Texas showdown there in AT&T Stadium at the end of the season.
Guys, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it's spooky season.
It is spooky
Halloween
season.
Is coming. It's time for tricks, treats, and surprises. Who is your most surprising team so far this season? Let's start with Jake this time.
Yeah, I'm going Somerville. I've talked to them a bunch the last couple of weeks, it seemed like, which is funny because they started out 0-4. You can never really write someone off after non-district because, district is kind of that second part of the season. But I think even, the coaches themselves kind of would say, hey, we were a little surprised because, they're 3-0 in district. They haven't lost. They started out 0-4, now they're 3-4, and they're kind of in the driver's seat. I think I was doing some math earlier. I'm not a mathematician, but I think they only need to really win one more game, and they've secured a playoff spot. So just really impressive start for them. I've just been real impressed. And it's kind of funny, too, because they're in the same district as Burton, who I
Right.
think's been my best team. So and that's actually the regular season finale for both teams. So that's kind of another collision course, or could be a collision course at the end of the season.
Alex, who's spooky good this year?
It's got to be the Milano Eagles. I mean, they are 5-0. They're on their way to the playoffs. It looks like for the first time since 2018. And to put into perspective, it's been tough sledding for them the last 3 or 4 years. Like they have just not been that good. And the fact that they have started 5-0 and they are a true contender in their district. We talked last week about Bremont and Chilton. But Milano's right up there with them, and they've got a stud at running back. His name's Josh Millar, and he's a real threat. He's up to almost 800 yards, has 11 touchdowns this season. This is their best team probably since that 2017 season. They went 11-2. So Milano's my team that's been most surprising so far.
There is no Heisman Trophy winner for the Brazos Valley, but if there were, who would be on the top of your watch list as the best player so far, Alex?
Well, if you take a look at our snazzy little preseason cover,
you're playing with fire there.
You'll see there's this guy holding a football right here. His name's Paxton Hancock, and he plays for the Centerville Tigers. And we put him on the cover of our magazine for a reason.
You messed up our display.
I know. I'll fix it afterward. But there's a reason he was on the magazine cover to start the season, and he has not shied down from that, okay? He is the glue to that team, and he's really good on both sides of the ball. Almost 1,000 yards rushing so far, 11 touchdowns. He's their middle linebacker, leading tackler, and, Centerville's a good team without him, but with him, they are a great team and a true state contender. And I think we saw that when, they went down to the wire against Mart and had a chance to get a really big win in non-district. And I think we're going to see that as they get through this district slate. They're definitely the favorite in that district, and as they go through a really tough region in the postseason. So Paxton Hancock, he's my guy.
Jake?
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if y'all would remember this, but every year, the NCAA video game would come out.
I remember.
Heisman, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You'd make a player, and he'd always have all the crazy stats, right? Like 400 passing yards, 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns, and he'd win like the Heisman as a freshman. Well, I picked a guy that's kind of putting up similar numbers, I think, anyway, because every week I look at his stats and I go, man, this is straight out of a video game. And that's Bremont quarterback Braylon Wortham. He's only a sophomore, and man, he's just really impressed so far. Bremont's only lost 1 game, and just every week we get the stats. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm just like, wow, he's a dual threat quarterback. He's got 959 passing yards so far. I think 872 rushing yards on this season. I think maybe he's up to total. I'm not 100% sure on this. I need to double check, but he's almost at 20 total touchdowns through the air and then on the ground. He's just doing it all for them, and it's showed. I mean, they've only lost 1 game so far this season, and I've been real impressed with him.
Yeah, so breakout player of the year. Who is the most surprising player you've seen so far, Jake?
All right, well, this is kind of cheating a little bit because for me, I'm the new guy, so everyone's impressed me. Like, everyone could be on this list for me because every week I go watch a team.
That's so nice of you, Jake. You're just sharing the love all around.
I mean, it's true. Every week I go out and watch a team, and, I maybe only seen once or twice before, and I go, wow, that guy's real impressive. Like, how does he do this? And I come back and talk with Alex, and Alex is like, yeah, he's been doing that for 4 years. But no, so for this one, it's 2 guys actually. It's kind of a duo here, but running back Keyshawn Thomas and running back Trey Taylor for A&M Consolidated. Both of them have been real impressive on the ground. Honestly, there are times where I've covered a couple console games now, and there are times where I look up and I'm a little confused on which running back's in, just because one goes out and the other just picks up right away and keeps on trucking. Those 2 have been real impressive so far, and it's showed. Console's been really kind of killing teams on the ground, and those 2 are a big reason why.
Alex?
Yeah, I'm going to go on the other side of town, Aiden Martinez Brown. I mean, you look at our cover and a guy that we thought was going to have a great season, Marquise Collins. we've talked at length about, how unfortunate it was for him to have that injury in the preseason scrimmage. And, when he went down, we had a lot of question marks about, what was College Station going to do on offense, because they had lost so much from last year's state championship finalist team. And Collins was the one guy they brought back that was a surefire threat and one of the best running backs in the entire state. My guy is Aiden Martinez Brown, because whereas College Station hasn't had the services of Marquise Collins, they found their way in the running game behind him. Anthony Trevino was a guy that stepped in pretty quickly and did some really good things. He hasn't been able to play the last couple of weeks because of an injury, but Aiden Martinez Brown has been a guy that they quickly got up to speed. He's only a sophomore. We talk about Braylon Wortham having a good season. Aiden's been, kind of their bell cow the last couple of weeks, and he's really come along, and he's their leading rusher both in yardage and in touchdowns, and they're going to need him to continue to have this kind of season if they want to continue to have a state kind of contender year as they go through the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs in a Region 3.
So most players and coaches, if you ask them what game they're looking forward to much, it's going to be coach speak. It's going to be, we're going to take this one game at a time, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah. There's always that game down the line that they want. Here at the Brazos Sports Prepcast, we can look ahead to whatever game we want to. There is no coach speak here. So, games you've got circled for the final weeks of the season. What's that game that you are the most excited about, Alex?
Yeah, it's very obvious. It's A&M Consolidated versus College Station. I mean, these are two really good teams. I wouldn't be surprised if Consol gets back into the top 10 in 2 weeks before this game, and it'll be a top 10 showdown at Cougar Stadium. And, this has district championship game kind of aura around it, playoff game type feel. This is a game that hasn't been played in 4 years because they've been in different divisions and just haven't played in non-district. So, this is going to be a really good game, and this is going to be a game that, if things shuffle the right way, we could see again maybe in the playoffs. And so that's one that I've got circled. The other one that I've got circled is Franklin versus Cameron-Yo, and it's too bad that it's on the exact same day as Consol College Station, because those are two games that I would really want to watch. Cameron-Yo, we talk about surprise teams. They probably are runner-up, right? Because this Cameron team has been very impressive so far. They went and got that big win over Lorena, and now they're kind of in that district contender spot right alongside Franklin. And we talk about how Consol College Station could be for a district championship. That one could be for a district championship too over in Franklin that day.
Jake?
Yeah, my two are pretty close here in the Brazos Valley to our office, actually. But I'm going Bryan and Harker Heights. That one will actually be on the road, but I'm excited for that one. We know Bryan. I think Bryan's 1-1 in district right now, so they're still kind of figuring things out. It's early for them. You look at Harker Heights right now; they're 3-0 in district, so they're kind of in first. This one's to end the year, though, or in the regular season, excuse me. I'm just real excited to see kind of where both teams are at that point. It's kind of unfortunate for Bryan when they played Temple. What was that, 3 weeks ago? Malcolm was out. It's kind of curious, we know he's supposed to be back in a couple weeks. That's what he put on social media. Maybe by the end of the season he could be back. Bryan could, we talked about it before. Me and Alex have, Bryan's real talented, kind of putting all the pieces together. If Malcolm's back, what do they look like at the end of the season? I mean, they could be playing spoiler there, depending on how the rest of the district shakes out. And then the last one for me is next week. It's Rudder and Brenham. We talked about Brenham before. They're real talented. I think they're undefeated in district. They're either 2-0 or 3-0.
2-0, I think,
2-0
right now.
At this point. Brenham's looked real good. Rutter's had some trouble, but had some struggles up to this point. They lost a tough one to Huntsville last week. We'll talk about that a little later in the show. But real excited to see kind of that matchup, especially because didn't really think about this until I talked with Coach Eric Izar last week after the Huntsville game. But, he said, hey, we've got 4 games left, 4 district games left. We got to win 3 of them to make the playoffs. So that could be a big one for Rutter, kind of depending on their playoffs because they got Lake Creek, Montgomery this week. So then after that, they've only got 3 left. So depending on what happens this Friday, next Friday could be an even bigger game.
For sure. Well, this desk is nice, new desk that we have. For those of you who are just listening, we have a wonderful new studio here with the desk. This desk is a little crowded, so I'm going to butt out here and let y'all continue to break down some of the great high school action we have here in the Brazos Valley. So thanks so much for letting me join y'all today, and they'll be back with a little bit more of the Brazos Sports Prepcast after this.
Welcome back to the Brazos Sports Prepscast, everybody. Hope you enjoyed our mid-season superlatives. It was kind of fun, Jake. We need to do that a little more.
I enjoyed that.
We'll do that at the end of the season. We'll do our 2022 superlatives. Hey, but until then, there's still a lot of football to be played, including this Friday. So let's jump right into it. Hey, Brian, they're back in action this week against Pflugerville-Weiss. The Vikings are coming off a bye, hoping to creep back toward the top of the 12 6A standings. The Wolves are kind of in a similar position if you look at the district standings, and you look at. I was trying to make my picks this week, and I was trying to see some common opponents. They've played Temple and Copper's Cove pretty similar, so kind of a pretty even matchup if you look at it. And when you look at the next couple weeks, what's ahead for Brian, these 2 games against Weiss and then at Waco Midway next week could go a long way to kind of determining where the Vikings are going to land in the playoff pecking order.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is a matchup between the 3rd team, Brian's 3rd in the district, and then I think Pflugerville-Weiss is 5th. So,
right.
And they're both 1-1, is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
So it's like a log jam up there. So going to be interesting to see once that starts to kind of separate a little bit.
Yeah, a guy that we've been we talked about him in the first segment, but, Malcolm Gooden, when and if is he going to come back for the Vikings? Could it be this week? Could it be a little later down the road? Creed Pierce, he put together a pretty good game against Copper's Cove, kind of, commanding that offense well, really good rushing attack against the Bulldogs. So kind of curious to see what Brian's going to be able to do at quarterback this week and, when Malcolm may make his return, which would be a huge boost to the Vikings.
Yeah.
So, hey, A&M Consolidated and College Station, they're like this close to wrapping up playoff spots. And we'll start with the Cougars because they've got a huge game this Friday. Battle of 2 first-place teams. They're hosting Leander Glenn on homecoming. They're both 3-0. If College Station can go to 4-0, they would be at least tied for first with Consol, who's also 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Has a pretty favorable game against Leander on the road this week. We'll talk about that in a second. Jake, you watched the Cougars a couple weeks ago. What do you feel like they're really start focusing on from what Coach Pryor had to say earlier this week?
Yeah, really for them it's just kind of building, keep taking that next step and keep building on what they've done before. A great example is I talked to College Station kicker Connor Young this week for a little feature on him. You can check it out Friday in the Eagle. Little plug there. Got to get the plug in.
Of course.
But no, so, he's kind of a great example of that kind of mindset they're taking. It's just, hey, building on and on. Connor's a guy, the kicker. Connor, this is his only first year on varsity. Last 2 years, he's been behind, guys who ended up going to play in Division I.
Mm-hmm.
And Sam and Dawson, both
Right.
of them. So, he's kind of a perfect example of what they're trying to do is just kind of take that next step. For him, especially last week, I know Connor had an onside kick that he ended up recovering himself. I think that was actually the first play of the game for College Station last week. So, yeah, they're really just trying to take that next step as a team, build on. We talked about it in the first segment too. Aiden Martinez Brown, he's another guy that they kind of want to see just keep taking steps forward and really just kind of leading the way and see where they can go.
Yeah, Cougars got a big win over Cedar Park last week, 17-0. So, that's a good win for them. Another big game against Leander Glenn this Friday. Hey, Consol, they hit the road against Leander High on Friday night. Tigers had a strong game from Will Hargett last week. He was our player of the week in the poll against Pflugerville Hendrickson. Consol, they've got some winnable games in this middle stretch of the season, so Tigers really looking to take advantage of some opportune matchups, and if Consol and College Station can keep it up, we talked about in that first segment where they're kind of headed, kind of on a collision course for October 28th. What we kind of maybe expected coming into the season. Still lots of football to be played though. These next 2 weeks, College Station, of course, like we said, battling 3-0. Leander Glenn, they got Georgetown next week, who's really coming along, and Consol. I mean, they're trying to get it rolling, get some consistency over there. Really good outing from the defense last week. Consol did, and really making sure that Hendrickson, when they had their chances, didn't get much out of it, and Consol really looking like a pretty complete team over there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you covered the Consol game. What'd you see out there?
Yeah, Hargett had a good game. Looked really comfortable in the pocket. Had kind of a tougher week the week before, and that was a good game for them. Had got the connection with Wesley Watson going. Keyshawn Thomas was unavailable, so they went with Trey Taylor at running back mostly, and he did some good things. And then Ashton Jasperson, he got a pick six there in the first half. That was a big momentum swing for them. Got some points up on the board, and just a pretty complete win when you look at it overall. Had a field goal from Mo Fichetti, and so
it was a shutout too, right?
Yeah, it was a shutout, 41-0.
Oh, okay. So both College Station and Consol had shutouts.
Yeah. Hopefully some guys got some shutout donuts. Is that still a thing these days? You know what I'm talking about?
No, what is that?
You come in on Saturday morning, coach brings you some donuts because you got shutout donuts. You put the 0 up on the board.
Oh.
Sorry, microphone. But yeah, it's just a nice little treat. I never played defense, so I didn't get a part of that, but I know it's a thing somewhere. So, all right. Hey, Rudder, they've got a big game this week on the road. They're playing first place Montgomery Lake Creek. I'm pretty sure Lake Creek's state ranked in the top 10 these days, which shouldn't be surprising. They're playing really good football.
I think they're 7th.
I think you're right. That sounds correct. And I think they're 7-0 or 6-0 already.
Yeah.
Either way, they're really good. Rudder's going to have a big game on the road. And, Jake, you were there last week, saw them play Huntsville. What'd you kind of see from the Rangers last Friday?
Yeah, really for them, they were just kind of, and Coach Izar and I talked about it afterwards too. Rudder made plays, but then every time they needed, they made plenty of plays. They were able to move the ball. The defense played pretty well for the most part. Really just the issue was at least for both, what we both kind of saw was and talked about was just that, every time they had a big play of momentum, just got yanked away. Best example I can give is, late in the second quarter, I think maybe there was 4 minutes to go. Rudder was around midfield. They had just pulled off a big third down completion. I think they were back on their own 10-yard line. They just launched one down about 45 yards down the field. Jaquise Martin comes up with a big catch, and you're thinking, all right, this is probably, in my opinion at the time, I'm thinking, all right, this is his best play they've had all day. Let's see what they do with it. Next play is actually a touchdown pass to Nate Figures. He sheds off a couple tacklers, and you're thinking, all right, Rudder finally took the lead back. I think at that point it would have been maybe 14-10, but all of a sudden, here comes a flag, holding. Rudder gets that whole play wiped off the board, and then ended up, still kept the drive going. Had to settle for a field goal, late field goal too. I want to say they pretty much used the rest of the clock to make that field goal. And then you're thinking, all right, well, they'll go down. Maybe I think at that point it was 14-10, or I'm a little confused on the score, I'll admit. But the field goal they wouldn't have taken the lead, but they would have been close enough. Mm-hmm. Point is, kick the field goal, gets blocked. Huntsville picks it up, returns it. Time runs out. Huntsville isn't getting points on the board, but you're just sitting there thinking, man, from going 7 points to then 3 points to then just 0 points. Real tough break for them there. Tough break too for quarterback Xavier Ramirez at Rudder. We talked about him before. He left the game with a concussion. Didn't play the entire second half. I'll be talking with Coach Izar later today, actually, to talk about Quay Jackson, the cornerback on defense, for a little story on him. I'll maybe see if I can get maybe an update on Xavier as well. But for the time being, he missed the whole second half. Jaquise Martin stepped in at quarterback, played pretty well. We know he can do a lot. We've seen him out there at receiver, at running back. Even we've seen him take some snaps at quarterback before. Mm-hmm. We saw that in the preseason. So, he played real well in filling in. Just a tough break for them, though. I know that was kind of a long answer to your question, but, just a tough break for them.
Yeah, and, like you said in the first segment, the Rangers, they're really trying to get it going here. They know they've got to get about 3 wins to get into the playoffs again. And it's going to be a tough matchup this Friday on the road against the Lions. They're a really good football team. So, all right, private school roundup. Hey, Brazos Christian, they stopped at 3-game losing skid with a win over Lutheran North last week. Tyler Prince, he was on our honor roll this week. 3 touchdowns, 64 yards. They're looking to make it 2 in a row against Tomball Rosehill this Friday. So.
Yeah, and then another team, St. Joseph, they had a convincing win over Galveston O'Connell. Mark Mishler, quarterback, he had 4 touchdown passes, about 239 passing yards. St. Joseph, I think they're back at home this week. Is that right?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I bet they're back at home, and they play Divine Savior this weekend. What should be another good game for them.
Yeah, and then Allen Academy, they're getting back on the field this week against Beaumont Legacy Christian. Hey, I'm sure Coach Adams is happy about the way Red River, he said 17, try 49. Sheesh. I was not expecting that. Be sure to check last week's episode for our conversation with Coach Adams. Great conversation. Always enjoy talking with him. The Rams, like we talked about last week, they're trying to keep it rolling. Got some good things going, so trying to keep it rolling. All right, Jake.
Well, I got to admit, I was hoping you would share that clip of him saying 17 once the final hit. I was really hoping you would be his score prediction was a little off, but...
Just a little. I'm sure he's okay with that, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think he'd definitely take he'd take his prediction wrong as long as they won, and they won big, which they did, so...
Well, hey, 3 games to watch around the Brazos Valley this week. We'll start with Burton at Snook. And you talked about Burton earlier.
My best team so far.
Blue Jays though, kind of in the middle of the log jam that's in that district behind Burton and Somerville, who are both 3-0. Snook lost to Somerville last week, tough loss. Burton's going to be a tall order for the Blue Jays this Friday. Pretty sure Burton can wrap up a playoff spot this week with a win over Snook. That would be their 13th straight playoff appearance, searching for their first official district title since 2018. You got to remember, they had all those wins vacated last season after an ineligible player was ruled. Still made the playoffs and made a pretty good run, but no official district title from last season. So Burton, like we said earlier, they're pretty dang good. Snook, though, upset-minded, trying to get a big win. They're at home this week, so see what the Blue Jays can do there. How about our second game, Jake?
Yeah, we've got Madisonville at Robinson. We've talked about the Mustangs a lot, especially early on in the year. I felt like they were the first 4 weeks. It was just Madisonville. But they've lost the last 2 in a row, and they had last week off, so they're really looking to get back on track. Robinson was pretty competitive with Salado last week, and Madisonville, they kind of need a good win to kind of kick off district play and then kind of kickstart things again. Right now, they kind of seem like a car just sitting in park. They just need to get in the drive and get it rolling again, because we know how talented they are and how talented they can be after non-district. I think they went 3-1
Yeah.
They had a pretty solid non-district
Yeah.
start, I want to say. I don't have it off the top of my head, but
Yeah,
I
they
want
were
to say
3-1, and then they lost their last 2.
yeah. So they're 3-3 right now. So yeah, we know they can get it rolling again. We've seen that. And yeah, this will be a big one. This is only a 5-team district, which has got to be one of the smaller ones
Right.
around, I would say. So every game matters. I mean, every district game matters anyway, but with 5 teams, really matters because you only got 5 teams. So yeah, this is another big one for both teams, kind of trying to figure out playoff seeding, maybe even to get in, just to get into the playoffs. This is a big one.
Don't want to be the odd man out in the 5-team district. That is detrimental. And yeah, every game goes a long way to as far as playoff positioning goes. So, all right, last game, Iola at Milano. On paper, Jake, I'll say it, not a great game. Milano's 5-0. Iola's 1-5. It's an all Brazos Valley game though, and Iola's they're looking to get something going, and an upset win over the Eagles could really go a long way for them. They're really trying to get it going in their first year under Coach Barrow over there. Milano looking for a strong showing because the next 3 weeks are going to be tough. They've got road games against Bremont and Chilton sandwiched between one against Granger. And as it stands, those are probably the 3 best teams aside from Milano in that district, especially Chilton and Bremont. So Milano's going to get tested soon for sure against some really good teams that we know. Iola trying to get a really good win this week. So see what happens over there in Milano. Jake? I think that's all we got. What do you
Yeah, I think
man?
so. I'm excited for another week. Should be fun.
All right. Well, hey.
And I like the new studio, too.
Me too. I love the new digs. So, hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage of Texas high school football here in Bryan College Station and the Brazos Valley. So, for Jake Weiss, I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you next week.